This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Healthcare professionals can lead their careers with LinkedIn. Discover jobs by specialty, preferred shifts, and even desired salary. From mental health therapists to radiology technicians, it's now faster and easier for healthcare professionals to find the right fit. Learn more at linkedin.com/healthcare. Side effects may include faster job placement, improved work-life balance, and increased career satisfaction.
This is Let the Record Show, using common sense. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Chairman Jesse Garcia.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show. This is Judge Richard Weinberg. With me is my good friend, esteemed colleague, Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is a vice chair of the New York State Party, as well as the county chair of the Suffolk Party. Jesse, I hear you were in Milwaukee. Anything happened in Milwaukee?
It was a quiet night there, a couple nights there, nothing really going on. But I have to tell you, I was proud to be a delegate from the 1st Congressional District representing the state of New York. I've been to 4 national conventions, 2000 with the 2 Bush ones in 2000 in Philadelphia, the New York one for Bush, the 2016 for Donald Trump in Cleveland, and of course this last one, unfortunately, COVID eliminated the 2021. But this is by far the most electrifying, the most unified. It was a show that was put forward to the American people. It showed the American people who Donald Trump truly is. It reminded the American people of his economic policies, of reducing taxes, reducing regulations to let businesses thrive, taking his thumb off the scale on who succeeds and who doesn't succeed. Certainly being respected on a world stage, and of course, I think Lee Zeldin, who spoke in prime time, Suffolk's favorite son, who came within a whisker of becoming New York governor just about 2 years ago, he said it best: Donald Trump ended wars without starting new ones. And we live in a climate today, and as we record this show today, Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, is making a compelling, passionate case for the U.S.-Israeli alliance, their efforts to end terrorists in the Gaza Strip, and prosecuting the lies and correcting the record of what some of the media and some of the protesters are trying to say in how this war is going on, trying to blame Israel wrongfully for basically protecting their homeland and their way of life in their home and their people.
Well, Jesse, I have to tell you, I have a number of thoughts. Number one, I was very, very impressed by the Republican convention, and I thought that they showed real star power, and the Republican Party has a very solid bench of new leaders as we go forward in this century. And they also seem to me to have experience, capability, and vision. So I was very impressed as I watched that. My take on Trump's speech, which came on the heels of the attempted assassination effort against him, I thought it was an extraordinary speech. If I had my own choice, I would have cut the speech shorter because, after a while you start losing the audience, and then he started to make it almost like a campaign rally. At the beginning, he showed exactly why he should be president, why he was a great president, and why, in my opinion, there's no comparison between the Trump-Vance ticket and the ticket with Kamala Harris and whoever she picks as her designee. Speaking of designees, how do you like the Democratic Party, Jesse? Who's always talking about democracy, representative government, and yet they've totally disenfranchised all the electors and all the people who voted for them, 16 million people who chose Biden, and they substituted somebody who wasn't participating in the primary and who on her previous run for the presidency, Jesse, dropped out without even going into a primary. So I don't think she's much of a candidate, and I certainly don't think that Kamala Harris is going to be much of a leader. I'm very unimpressed by Kamala Harris. But now she's the anointed one, and all the people who kept saying before, well, you got to keep Biden because you don't want to have Harris, now are rallying around her, and they're trying to reinvent her the way Dwight Eisenhower said, politics has become like the marketing of soap. You just keep selling, selling, selling. And I'm very disappointed in the Democratic Party. Biden himself should have left a long time ago, got off the stage, and given other people the chance to be the successor to the leadership of the party, as well as to represent the American people in the White House. So I was very upset about Biden staying in. But if you gave me a choice between Biden and Harris, it's a lose-lose on either event. He obviously has suffering from mental problems, whether it's dementia or Alzheimer's or many strokes or whatever. He's clearly not the man he used to be in terms of energy or vision or articulateness. So I think he was no choice at all. But that's what the Democratic Party foisted upon the American people. And then Harris is just an identity politics beneficiary. Her entire career has been made by backroom deals, by politicians who kept moving her up because she was a minority woman. And because she was a minority woman, that was the secret of success. I defy you to tell me any good accomplishments that this woman stands for. I mean, I really do. I'm just amazed. And she's going to be the president of the United States? Really? What say you, Jesse?
Well, I agree with you. I think that the Democrats put forward on the stage. Number one, everyone knew, I think, that this was inevitable. Once the Hollywood elites and the elite power brokers of the Democratic Party started questioning Joe Biden's acuity and let's just be honest, we're replacing one puppet with another puppet, but the puppeteers are the same. Donald Trump is right. The policies are shared by Harris and Biden. But what we saw in real time as Americans, these are what the Democrats truly stand for. They are not the defenders of democracy. They are the party that will change the rules. They basically justified in how they ran Joe Biden off the ticket. And what we saw was in real time a palace coup going on. We had a coup d'etat occur here, and it was undertaken by the likes of Obama, Pelosi, Jeffries. Actually, I think Hakeem Jeffries is an afterthought here. But what was more important here were the people like George Soros, billionaires, and the Hollywood elite. And I have to tell you, with friends like Barack Obama, we don't need, Joe Biden didn't need any enemies. I believe Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi played good cop, bad cop. And Obama, who always tries to stay above the fray and out of the drama, but he was the one that was putting the knife into the back of his friend Joe Biden. But I think that what we've seen is that what they've done is basically thrown out the electoral process. I'm a taxpayer in Suffolk County in New York. I want the Democrats to reimburse the taxpayers of Suffolk County the $2 million it cost to run a primary that the taxpayers had to fund in April if they were just going to undertake this coup d'etat and this palace coup. Because voting for the Democrats does not matter. They justified in their actions in eliminating their presidential candidate and anointing someone who's not prepared, who shares the same failed policies as Joe Biden, and is not doing much better in the polls. That any questions that were going on in the 2020 elections, they justified because of the actions they put forward in full view of the American people. This is unbelievable to me. And for 14 million Democrats to be disenfranchised, cast aside, so that a handful of power brokers from Hollywood, Wall Street, and big tech to decide who their party's nominee is going to be. I'm a Suffolk County taxpayer in New York. I want my money back.
Well, no kidding, because this has been the least democratic process I've ever seen. This is like the old smoke-filled rooms. This is the height of political corruption. They knew for years that Obama wasn't fit to run again. In fact, it just came out in October of 2021, October 21, that's in his first year of the Biden presidency. Biden has a meeting on legislation with the leaders of Congress, and he stumbled through it. He was inarticulate. He made no sense. He rambled, and Pelosi had to take over the leadership of that meeting, Jesse, to run the meeting, to cut the deal. And you know what happened after that in terms of future meetings between Biden and the congressional leadership on legislative matters? Absolutely nothing. It was all done by Pelosi and Schumer and the Democratic leaders of the House and the Senate. They did what they wanted to do, and then they went back to the White House and they told them what the deal was. So Obama never, from the October 2021 meeting, where everybody looked around in that room and said to themselves, oh my God, Obama's lost it. Now, the guy who knew this, and to his credit, tried to do something about it, was a congressman named Dean Phillips. And if you recall, he challenged Obama in the primaries, and he got nowhere because they fixed his calendar on the primaries, and he did everything possible to diffuse any problem with the anointment of Obama as the candidate again. This was a real problem. Dean Phillips ran. He was marginalized. Nobody took him seriously, but he was telling the truth, and he was doing the right thing. And that's a very big problem for the Democrats when they go out there in the most hypocritical way and say they are the party of the people, they are the party of democracy with a small d, the Republicans are the villains. Please, this was a cover-up from start to finish. Now, the other big players in this cover-up, Jesse, not just on the mental health and physical health, but it's the mass media. The mass media were people who actually covered up for Biden's ineptitude, covered up for his physical health, kept telling you that Biden was the greatest president since sliced bread. They keep talking now, after having put the knife in his back and supplanted him as a nominee for the Democratic Party and putting Harris in there, what do? They're now telling you how wonderful Kamala Harris is. She's the greatest thing ever. Really? What has she ever done that's accomplishment, that's distinguished herself, that's helped the American people? Your thoughts, Jesse?
Well, my thoughts, and you just brought this up. That's why I think it's so important for the American people that the Republican Party takes control of both chambers of Congress, both the Senate and the House of Representatives, maintains the House of Representatives majority. Because I do believe that there's a coalition of a cover-up that was engaged in here. You know how we have an axis of evil, Iran, North Vietnam, Korea, China, Russia. Well, there's a coalition of a cover-up here that involves, as you pointed out, the mainstream media, those reporters in the White House press room who knew this, the Democrat elites from Hollywood who raised tens of millions of dollars for them, big tech companies who censored and controlled what people on social media were receiving. Let's not forget that the laptop was disinformation in 2020 turned out to be accurate. And of course,
what about Russian collusion? It all started with
Russian collusion. Those four groups got together with Democratic power brokers because they wanted the status quo. They needed Joe Biden so that their influence, their power, their greed could continue to be fed and executed. And now, when his poll numbers were disastrous because he was uncovered, it was disclosed, it was shown clearly on the eyes of 51 million people during that debate. The jig was up, and they had to act. So what do? They wiped away the votes of 14 million Democrats. They wiped away elections and primary elections that had taken place in all of our states, and they removed their candidate. That's why it's important that we fully investigate who knew what, when they knew it, what actions they took to control this narrative, to hide this condition from the American people. I want to know who was running the country during that period of time, and what did these coalition of cover-up allies receive for their participation. These are 3 questions that need to be asked, need to be investigated, and need to be brought into the light of day.
Jesse, you couldn't be more correct. This is Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg, Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. We'll be right back in a few moments with more interesting conversation on Let the Record Show. Please stay tuned.
Let the Record Show is on the air.
I already love same-day delivery with Shipt, but it's so much better since I signed up for Target Circle 360. Why? Because I no longer pay price markups from the majority of stores through Shipt. Only a handful of alcohol retailers and items don't count. That means no markups on groceries, pet food, even home goods and makeup. So to recap, I have more time to catch up on life while someone shops for me, and I spend less. It's a win-win. Order now at shipt.com/360. Terms apply.
Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel or that white chocolate mocha. Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
The rural way of life is about making everyone feel at home. Tractor Supply chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business to transform intelligent customer service. Together, we put the power of AI to work across 2,200 stores, keeping things running seamlessly inside, curbside, and countryside. This is elevated customer experience. This is Tractor Supply with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
Home means something different to everyone. But with Rocket Mortgage, home can mean even more. It can mean a college education, taming your high-interest debt, even a renovation. We've made it easier than ever to use your home equity. That home you worked so hard for, now it can work hard for you. Call 800-4ROCKET or visit rocket.com to find out more.
Rocket Mortgage, LLC, licensed in all 50 states. NMLSConsumerAccess.org, number 3030.
This is Let the Record Show. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia.
We're back on Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the county chair of the Suffolk County Republican Party, as well as the vice chair of the New York State Republican Party. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. So, Jesse, I just want to have a couple of thoughts before we move on. You know, when we're talking about the cover-ups, so at the very beginning, you had false disinformation with Russian collusion. Absolutely fraudulent, absolutely awful, and they impeached President Trump on that to try to disqualify him. Okay? Then they had all these lawfare attacks against President Trump. These unfounded litigations, both civil and criminal, all unfounded, all nonsense, all geared to embarrass, humiliate, and destroy him, both financially, politically, and legally in the sense of criminal exposure. You had in the 2020 campaign, you had the 51 so-called intelligence experts saying that the laptop had all the earmarks of Russian disinformation. And now they've trotted out that from 15 or 16 so-called Nobel Prize winners and other learned economists that Trump will be bad for inflation, and he's an inflationary threat. So the key principle on all of these things, Jesse, is the threat of Donald Trump. If Donald Trump is president, he's a threat. If Donald Trump is elected again, he's a threat. That he's a vindictive guy who will go after his enemies, which is very, very funny given what the Biden White House and Biden Justice Department did. But all the lies, all the disinformation came out, whether it's the Russian collusion, the 51 intelligence experts lying about the laptop, Trump is a criminal, nonsense. Trump is an inflationary threat, more nonsense. And now they're saying he's a threat to democracy. I mean, what do you say about that? As a political leader of great esteem, and you're dealing with this, how do you deal with this barrage of false attacks?
Here's how I think we handle it. And I think that Donald Trump is in the catbird seat when it comes to this, Your Honor, and to all our listeners. Number one, there were more than 50 former CIA intelligence officers who said that the Hunter Biden laptop was a Russia hoax and had no credibility to it. But we found out that they were wrong. We've also heard the same Nobel laureates and all these economists say this about Donald Trump's policies, economic policies in 2016 during that election and in 2020. But here's for the American people and for every New Yorker. It's very simple. When Donald Trump was president, inflation was down to about 1.3, 1.4%. Under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
There's a Freudian slip, by the way, because you're not so wrong.
I know.
That's true. The Biden regime. I mean,
we know with Biden dropping out, Hunter's going to be getting a pardon somewhere at the end of this term. But here, the Harris-Biden inflation was peaked at almost double digits at 10%, and now hovers around 5%. We have a world at war. We have China moving in on Taiwan. We'll probably speak about that a little bit later. We have Russia moving into and trying to annex Ukraine at the behest of the Harris-Biden administration, which says taking a little bit of property is okay. And we have Iran with its proxies on monies that filled their coffers by the actions of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's administration that removed sanctions and allowed more monies, this Iran deal that moved forward. It pumped and moved money, which now the monies are being used in proxy wars against our allies like Israel and against American servicemen and women in the region. So it's a very binary example here. And while there's world is at war, Donald Trump eliminated ISIS. He brought peace to the Middle East with the Abraham Accords. There were no new conflicts. So Donald Trump, in 2016, was projected by these very same experts, or similar to, that he was going to start World War III, ended wars, as Lee Zeldin said, without starting them. Inflation was at less than 2% as opposed to almost 10% under Harris and Biden. Unemployment was at a record low. The economy was at a historic highs. If not for COVID, it's still been rocking and rolling. And even as the 2020 elections came about, Donald Trump's policies was restoring the economy and putting people to work. After that, we gave too many people too many money. We kept this country locked down for too long. We never should have been locked down in the first place.
Well, but look what you've done. Not you, but I mean this administration. The Democrats, they gave free money out, so they created economic disincentives to work. They locked down the schools, so the kids went behind the curve in terms of their learning. They locked down the economy so that businesses went out of business. The New York real estate market, for example, has never quite recovered in terms of commercial space, whether it's office building or retail on the street. It's flabbergasting that these people now saying that you have to have the Democratic Party in control to continue the program. The program is inflation. The program is enriching our enemies. The program is emboldening our enemies. The program is the vice of America. And don't forget, the keynote of the whole program is an invasion by illegal migrants who have no right to be here, who break our laws, who get the free lunch.
We haven't even gotten to that.
You're right. I mean, it's just flabbergasting. So they would say they want to run on the record and they want to continue the program that's been so successful. I defy them to say, what successes have they had?
They've had no success. That's why I think that by rolling out these so-called experts and such, it's not going to work with the American people because these are pocketbook issues. Really simple. How much more does it cost for you to fill up your gas tank, heat your home, buy school supplies and groceries? It's almost 15% more than it was under Donald Trump. Gas was at $1.75 under a gallon under Donald Trump. It's hovering around 4.5 right now under Harris and Biden. We had Teamsters working when we had the Keystone Pipeline released and given the green light by Donald Trump. Those 7,500 Teamsters were fired. Those are 7,500 American jobs that were lost on day one because of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris by executive order, a strike of a pen. And what happened? Not only did those 7,500 Americans lose opportunity to work, not only did Americans begin the process of not being energy independent and now relying on its enemies for fuel and fossil fuels and energy, but it drove up the cost of gasoline, of home heating oil, and all of these energy resources that we utilize. This is what the American people are going to be basing their decision on, not about a mean tweet. They can't say, the Democrats can't say and make make Donald Trump the threat to democracy when democracy in the last few weeks demonstrates it doesn't exist for the Democrats. All they want to do is continue their power position for influence, greed, and power over our lives.
Now, it's really shocking that the American people are subjected to this blatant hypocrisy. There's a record that Trump can run on. He was a man of accomplishment. If you didn't like his style, well, that's too bad. He got great results. I mean, really? You like the style of Biden, tripping literally and figuratively all over the place, incapable of making a sentence? Do you like the style of Kamala Harris, who's incapable of having an intelligent conversation and making intelligent speech unless she's reading straight from a teleprompter? She goes off in jargon and babbling-book and word salad. I mean, really? That's going to be the face of America in these stressful, dangerous times? This is really a troubling situation, which leads me to this. You know, Vance was nominated, and he was the choice of Trump. And, of course, Trump had the right to make that choice because he has to have a partner in the White House, in the executive branch, working with him. And I understand that. And I've met Vance, Senator Vance, and I think he's a very likable guy, and he's certainly an exceptionally intelligent person. His story is really, forgive the expression, a Hollywood story. He goes from absolutely rags to the power of the United States Senate, a successful best-selling book, a successful best-selling movie about his life. He's a remarkable guy, Vance. My caution about him is he really seasoned enough and old enough to do the job because he's only been in the Senate, for a couple of years, and he doesn't have the executive experience. That was my concern about Vance. And I thought there were other people who could have filled the ticket for Trump better. For example, Governor Youngkin of Virginia, Governor Doug Burgum of North Dakota. These were seasoned governors with track records of success, businessmen who were self-made men. They're used to being executives, and I thought that would be an add-on. Now, I understand the politics. Trump did the calculation, and he said, well, I need help in the Midwest. I need Pennsylvania, I need Ohio, I need Michigan, I need Minnesota. I need that grouping of states if I'm going to win the Electoral College. And I understand there'll be a draw in having Vance there because he talks that language of the Midwesterners, of the working people there. And I thought his speech was very solid when he introduced himself to the American people. My concern about Vance is there going to be a policy conflict with Senator Vance and President Trump? Because it always seems to me that Vance is much more of an isolationist than Trump, especially with respect to Ukraine. What are your thoughts about what I've just said?
Well, I think Senator J.D. Vance's story is so compelling. It's the American story. It's a story that my father, who defected from Cuba, sought to grab hold of and successfully had a family here. Me being a product of that, and my 9 foster brothers and sisters are a testament to that. This is somebody that J.D. Vance, I really do think demonstrates the evolution of Donald Trump. Remember, Donald Trump's not a politician. He's a showman. He's outspoken. Sometimes maybe some people would say that his mouth outpaces his fingers, or vice versa, if you depending on what social media platform you're talking about. But I think it shows the maturity of Donald Trump as an American leader and the leader of the free world. J.D. Vance was not a big fan of Donald Trump. Had some policy conflicts with him early on, but Donald Trump sought him out when J.D. Vance was seeking in a very tough primary fight for Ohio senator. I believe it was in 2022, and Donald Trump endorsed him because he felt he was the best one for that seat. I don't think he envisioned him as a vice presidential candidate there, but he looked at the field and felt that he would be best as a partner in the state Senate, in the U.S. Senate. And I think that policy debates and conflicts are healthy. That's what this country was built upon, not just Republican policies versus Democratic policies, conservative policies versus liberal policies, but even debates amongst policies within an administration. You want to hear all sides. The important matter here, though, is that once a consensus is reached or a decision is reached by the principal, that would be the president, that it now moves forward. And I do think that J.D. Vance can learn from Donald Trump, and I believe that Donald Trump can learn from and share in their shared ideology, because they both have this connection. Donald Trump coming from a family of developers and a billionaire, and literally, J.D. Vance being raised by his grandmother because his mother was divorced and suffered from addictions. And I will tell you, one of the most compelling, heartwarming moments of the convention was when J.D. Vance, from that floor and his speech in accepting a nomination, recognized his mother and the fact that she will be celebrating, hopefully in the White House in January, 10 years of sobriety. That is, sobriety. I believe that, whether it be mental illness or addictions of one form or another, every family deals with that. And the fact that you can have one of our future world leaders, our American leaders, have a direct connection with that, knows what the average American, the average voter family goes through, is what's going to cut through all this noise. So in short answer, of a very long-winded, at the end of a long-winded one, I think J.D. Vance and any policy conflicts that they may have, the American people will be better for it, because you want that discourse within the White House. You want to hear all sides, because from hearing all sides and implementing bits and pieces of different people's points of view, the American people benefit by the best plan.
Well, look, the fact of the matter is, when you talk about Kamala Harris, you're talking about, as vice president, you're talking about someone with no accomplishment. Her major role was to be the border czar. And if you're going to judge the potentiality of her presidency by her success in keeping our nation safe from a horde of illegal immigrants who pose a threat to us, whether it's terrorists, whether it's cartels, whether it's gang members, whether it's people coming here for free lunch who have no commitment to America, whether they're hordes of people from enemy states like Middle Eastern states or China. They're all coming in. She was supposed to seal the border. She was supposed to take care of the situation. And you have people from all over the world, not just Latin Americans, where she said she was going to focus her attention about cutting a deal with the Latin American countries to keep them there. That never happened. And this is a worldwide invasion, Jesse, a worldwide invasion.
It is a worldwide invasion.
This is not just, Guatemala or El Salvador or Mexico. This is a big deal. They're coming from all over, and they're a threat to America. And this really has to stop, because if it doesn't, America will be lost. And the woman, as Vice President of the United States, who had the one thing in her portfolio to take care of, didn't even go there but for one photo op, nowhere near where the invasion was taking place, and cavalierly said in between cackles, she says, well, I haven't even been to Europe. Well, if you're the border czar, you damn well should be at the border, inspecting it, speaking to the border agents about what the problems are, what needs to be done to try to help protect the border. This is Let the Record Show. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg with Chairman Jesse Garcia. Please stay with us. We'll be back in a few moments with our final segment of Let the Record Show.
This is Let the Record Show.
Five immersive worlds, one amazing theme park. Get ready to explore the all-new Universal Epic Universe, featuring the wizarding world of Harry Potter, Ministry of Magic, Super Nintendo World, How to Train Your Dragon, Isle of Berk, and Dark Universe. Epic Universe, now open at Universal Orlando Resort. Our universe will never be the same. Tickets and packages on sale now at universalorlando.com.
Shopping is hard, right? But I found a better way. Stitch Fix online personal styling makes it easy. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want. No subscription required. And he sends just for me pieces, plus outfit recommendations and styling tips. I keep what works and send back the rest. It's so easy. Make style easy. Get started today at stitchfix.com/Spotify. That's stitchfix.com/Spotify.
Tell Me What Happened is a show that asks, what would you do if you saw someone in danger?
I'm not making it out of this river. I'm never going to see my mom again. I'm never going to see my sister again.
Would you jump to their rescue? Or hope someone else does?
I couldn't see her head above the water. All I could see was her hair. If she was alive, she didn't have very long.
These are true stories of people that chose to help a stranger who was in trouble. Listen today to Tell Me What Happened, an original podcast by OnStar.
Parents of twins, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
This is Let the Record Show. Now, here are your hosts, Judge Richard Weinberg and Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia.
We are back on Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. You know what really concerns me, Jesse, is the sellout of our allies, particularly the sellout of the State of Israel, our strongest ally in the Middle East and one of the 1, 2, or 3 strongest allies America has in the world. And the fight that Israel is fighting against international Islamic terrorism is not just a fight for Israel and for the Jewish community. It is a fight for Western civilization. And you and I and Eric and our other guests have talked about that. This is a fight for Western civilization. Because if Iran is successful in knocking Israel out of the box, they will take over the Middle East. They will control the ocean lanes. They will control the oil production. They will encircle the so-called moderate arid states. That area will be theirs, and that will give the resources to embolden Russia and China and North Korea, because they'll have all the oil they can possibly need and have all the trade. And as you and I have talked about, they give, they're helping each other anyway. Money for arms for money, intelligence support. The Houthis have been attacking Western shipping, worldwide shipping, with impunity. The Biden administration has done nothing. Harris has never said a word about this as a threat. She doesn't understand national security, foreign policy. It's not what she's done. She has not spoken up about the worldwide threat is Islamic terrorism. Nor has she spoken up about what's going on with the threat to the Jewish community in America with all these pro-Hamas fellow travelers of Hamas in the college campuses on our cities. There's an Israeli delegation now in Washington, and now it had a demonstration. They invaded the Capitol. You don't see anybody screaming about them invading the Capitol yesterday. They attacked the hotel where the Israeli delegation is staying by having infestation of vermin. They think this is the way that they should conduct themselves. The Biden administration and the Harris administration never called them out on that. In fact, Harris consistently says she feels and understands what these demonstrators are saying. And let's not forget that she helped tool up millions and millions of dollars for the Black Lives Matter clowns and the Antifa clowns 4 years ago, who were burning down our cities, city after city after city, which was subjected to mob rule, violence, and lots of deaths and destructions of cities. And she was giving money to bail these people out. Let's not forget that. And she has a sympathy for every left-wing cause there is. She's the most liberal senator in the United States Senate. She's more liberal than Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren. She is dangerous because she's obsessive with left-wing policies, whether it's Green New Deal, appeasement of our enemies, sanction relief for Iran, which feeds, as you correctly pointed out in the earlier segment, which feeds our enemies the financial resources to finance the war against Western civilization through terrorist proxies, giving money for hostages, all these crazy things that she believes in. And as you correctly said earlier, it's the same program. It's the same game. They're just changing the puppet. They changed the puppet named Biden for the puppet named Harris, and they want to dominate and control the country and impose their values on the rest of us, and the rest of us be damned. If you had any doubt about the rest of us be damned, look what they just did with this coup against Biden. What do you say?
I completely agree with you. Number one, I opened up by saying that I watched Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech. It was passionate, it was compelling, and it properly prosecuted the terrorists, Hamas, who perpetrated this terrorist act against first Israel, but as he warned, Israel is just standing in the way of America and Western civilization. Iran is funding the Houthis, the Hamas, all these terror acts. And the problem is Kamala Harris is far more liberal. As you pointed out, she is far more liberal. She was rated the most liberal member of the U.S. Senate during her time there. If there's, we spoke about J.D. Vance and the experience. Kamala Harris has no experience. Let's talk about Kamala Harris's experience. You pointed out about her being a border czar. Well, we know that that's been a failed endeavor with 11 million illegal migrants filling our streets and now being and forcing New York taxpayers to fund $2.4 billion for illegal migrants into sanctuary cities and taking those monies away from school districts in our suburban communities. But she also wanted to eliminate ICE. She wanted to decriminalize border crossings, and she wanted to provide blanket amnesty. But that record is even worse. It's more liberal. She is part of this defund the police effort. When she was a prosecutor, she was advocating that it was wrong to put more cops on the street and that she wanted to reimagine public safety.
Yeah, she said there's too many police. She said there were too many police.
Too many police. She backed the elimination of cash on bail. We've all seen that as New York State residents, how that failed policy has come forward. So you're absolutely right about it. And the list goes on, and we will have a lot of weeks between now and Election Day and the start of early voting to basically prosecute the record of liberal Kamala Harris. But she is a danger because she is part and parcel of this administration that has embodied our enemies. There is a power vacuum going on right now. I am fearful for my friends in Israel, I'm fearful for my neighbors and my friends in the United States, because this coup d'etat that took place against Joe Biden is going to encourage our enemies, Putin of Russia, Xi of China, the Ayatollahs of Iran, to make further incursions, because they see the American presidency in turmoil. They don't see it as something that's good for a political party. They see a vacuum in American leadership. Our president disappeared for a week, more than a week. And unlike Lyndon B. Johnson, who gave a 4,000-word live speech on why he decided not to run for re-election in 1968, we've got a 5-page letter that was probably penned by Joe Biden or maybe Kamala Harris herself. I'm just being facetious there. But this current state that we have and the continuation of failed U.S. policy at the diplomatic and foreign affairs stages is endangering American lives, Western civilization, and all democracies and freedom-loving countries in the globe. We've got to wake up, ladies and gentlemen. You've got to wake up.
Sure, when the Vice President of the United States, a potential President of the United States, boycotts an address by the Prime Minister of Israel, our close ally and friend, when she does that, she sends a signal to Iran, to Hamas, to the Houthis, to Hezbollah. Hey, you don't have to worry about us. We don't have Israel's back. We do not care about Israel. We're going to do what we have to do to let you go forward and do what you want to do. In fact, by the way, I just want to point out to you, people say, no, what are you talking about? Harris is married to some Jewish fellow. Okay, let's talk about Harris's stepdaughter. She was one of the leaders and participants of all these violent demonstrations against the state of Israel in protecting itself against a war of aggression, a defensive war, which was a genocidal attempt to destroy the people of Israel. She was protesting in favor of Hamas. So that's Joe Biden's vice president, and she has a stepdaughter who she can't even walk around the block and say, are you kidding me? That's really where you want to be? You want to be in these awful demonstrations, closing down schools and streets and civilization in the name of Hamas? And where's the father speaking up and taking her for a walk around the block? So there's nobody there in that family who's doing the right thing. So why should Netanyahu and the people of Israel have any confidence that a Harris in the White House is going to be good for them? It marginalizes Israel. And by the way, it furthers a longer war and an enhanced war. Because if Israel realizes that nobody's going to protect its back, then it has to do what it has to do. For example, we talk about the Houthis and on the canals in the Red Sea. So what do the Houthis do? They launch a rocket into Tel Aviv, and they kill a citizen and hurt a whole bunch of others. And, of course, Israel responds by this direct, forceful attack against the Houthis. John Cassidy and Casson Cosby said many times, if the Western powers would get together and do what they had to do, they could knock out the Houthis 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. They could knock them out. And what did Biden do, by the way, at the very beginning? Because remember, the fight for Yemen was a fight between Iran and Saudi Arabia. He immediately declassified the Houthis as a terrorist organization. One of the first things he did.
Exactly.
Besides opening up the border. I mean, so what's with Biden and what's with Harris when they say that they're better for peace? They only embolden the enemy, they appease, and they cause the framework of world disorder. I mean, it's horrifying. So, by the way, I just want to raise this with you. What is wrong? Has Biden ever said anything about the fact that there's an Iranian hit on President Trump? He's on their hit list?
Exactly.
Has he ever said anything that there's a hit out on Ambassador Bolton? Has he ever said anything that there's a hit on Secretary of State Pompeo? Has he ever said that there's a hit against O'Brien, who's National Security Advisor? And there are 50 more, by the way. So you're President of the United States. The first thing you should go out there and say, let me tell you something, Iran. You better stop this nonsense about trying to assassinate our present and former leaders, because there's be a price to pay for that. And if Trump were president, he damn well would say it, and they'd do something about it. What do you say?
Absolutely, and I think that, we haven't even had time to go into the update on the attempted assassination of Donald Trump and what came out this week with Director Cheeto finally, after not answering and evading questions at a House Oversight Committee in a bipartisan way, by the way, where finally resigned after being called upon by Democrats and Republicans that she should no longer lead that department. And here's the problem with Kamala Harris and with Joe Biden. They didn't fire anybody. You could fail in the Middle East. You could fail the economy. You could fail militarily. You can fail in getting legislation done, and no one gets fired. You can fail
on the border.
A dignitary.
They're on the border. Right. And it's all okay.
It's unbelievable. There's no accountability. And I'm glad that and this is another way how that assassination attempt of Donald Trump has unified our country. Number one, when you have AOC and Jim Jordan saying the same position and calling on her to resign because she was negligent in what she was in her duties, that's unification. And even in his remarks at the convention and following the convention, he wants to bring this country together. That does not mean that if he gets punched in the face, he's not going to punch back politically. There's a difference. But he called for unification. He wants his country to be united. He wants to truly end the divide. Not like Joe Biden said that he was going to unify this country, and the first thing he did was call 80 million voters for Donald Trump extremists. It's almost like Hillary Clinton calling Donald Trump supporters deplorables.
Well, it's awful because the first role of the President of the United States is to be the unifier in chief and the protector of our national security. And the Biden-Harris administration has failed on both that. The unifier of the people, because we're all in this together, and the protection of our national security. I mean, how tough is it to try to do your job the right way? So he gives this wonderful first speech at the inauguration, and everything he's done ever since. Even after the Trump attempted assassination, he goes out there and mouths some platitudes, and the next thing you know, he's accusing Trump again with hateful speech, that he's a threat to the country, he's a threat to democracy, and Harris did the same thing. So much for their the unifiers. I mean, give me a break. Now, let me ask you this. Russia is now making noise about trying to settle the Ukraine war. And they'll be more than happy to settle it this time, but they don't want to give back any of the territory that they unlawfully seized. What do we do about that?
Well, I think that, number one, I think this is where I fully support the position of Ukraine, of the nation of Ukraine, where any type of ceasefire and any type of diplomatic treaty begins with the complete withdrawal of Russian forces on Ukrainian soil. We cannot let them have a foothold on Ukrainian soil. We cannot validate bad behavior by giving them a reward. By giving them a reward. So I believe that, and that just like Netanyahu says, give me the hostages, then we'll talk about a ceasefire. Plain and simple. But until that happens,
you said something very interesting.
We should back Ukraine.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you said something very interesting about hostages just now. Because, look, the first thing Biden and Harris should have done when they seized 250-odd hostages, people from the various places across the world, and a whole bunch of Americans. God knows if any of those are still alive. As we go in, as we're approaching the middle of the summer, going into the fall. So we're going to have a first-year anniversary of that awful attack. The first thing they should have said is, all bets are off, return the hostages now.
Yep.
When they didn't say that, they did what they do best. These savages, these terrorists, They understand the hostage game, whether it's Hamas, whether it's Iran, whether it's Russia. They all understand the hostage game. You know, they grab somebody and they get money for it. They grab somebody and they get some geopolitical concessions. So it's a game that when you play the hostage game, the people who give in to hostage taking lose. International law loses. Civilization loses. It's a dangerous game. And as I've said before, I'm not a big fan of loss of life. I don't want to see people hurt. But I will say to you that you can't give in to hostage takers. What do you say, Jesse?
I think you're right. One thing that we have demonstrated is that the Biden-Harris administration does not know how to play the hostage game. You know, number one, hostages are not recovered, or we pay billions of dollars for 6 hostages. You know, just the sham trial that Russia did with the Wall Street Journal reporter is just yet another example. God knows what America is going to pay for that. But this, you know, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have not demonstrated the wherewithal or the ability to properly deal with those that will take American hostages. What they have done is basically set forth a plan that those kidnappers and those terrorists know they're going to get paid off. What they should be getting paid off is how Netanyahu initiated an aggressive stealth rescue plan that began the process of getting back some of these hostages. Those are the type of actions we need to take. We need to send a clear message. You touch an American life, there will be consequences to you, the perpetrators of this, and to your forces. We're not buying you off.
Well, I think we're going to have to stop this week's show on that note. I just want to tell you, if you want to talk about, and we should talk about this on next week's show, we really want to talk about something that will be a game changer, is the potential move. And they're gobbling up islands. They're putting military bases on islands. They're causing problems in the Philippines and in Vietnam. China is on the move. They have stations now and military bases in Latin America, so much for the Monroe Doctrine protecting our hemisphere. They're on the move. And if they take out and dominate one way or another Taiwan, whether it's by military force or by boycotts and sanctions and control, and so they make it a colony, what happens to America when we need the resources of the computer chips? And the computer chips are coming out of Taiwan. How are you going to run an economy with their obsession with the Green New Deal without computer chips? Everything runs by computers today. And if the computer chip source is taken over by the Chinese, then America is first in trouble, Jesse. And we need to talk about this some more. Well, this has been Let the Record Show. Jesse and I are delighted to be with you again. We pray for America, and we pray for you and your families. God bless this great country. And thank you for listening to Let the Record Show.
This is Let the Record Show.